A large part of the operation taking place right here in LA County, considered a hotbed for human trafficking.
Among the victims, teenagers from all over the country, some as young as 13.
A large part of the operation took place right here in Los Angeles County, considered a hotbed for human trafficking. Among the victims were teenagers from all over the country, some as young as 13. The Los Angeles area has been identified as one of the nation's highest intensity areas for the commercial sexual exploitation of children and youth. In Los Angeles County, California, the entire neighborhood was still asleep. No sirens, no flashing lights, no warning at all. Only the low hum of engines as a convoy of dark SUVs quietly moved into position surrounding a private hillside mansion valued at nearly $18 million. Within seconds, every entry point was sealed. The front gate, the rear service road, and the side perimeter were secured. A total of 34 federal agents stepped out of the shadows. FBI, ICE, and DHS were each in position, each fully briefed. This was not a routine arrest. This was a high-level federal operation authorized across multiple agencies, targeting a cross-border organized crime network. The target was not an unknown suspect. It was Adam Schiff, a sitting Democratic lawmaker in the state of California. A man who had spent years building a public image as a policy advocate, a trusted official representing thousands of constituents. But behind that image, investigators now believed something else had been operating completely out of sight. The signal was given without hesitation. The front door was breached in a controlled entry. Within seconds, tactical teams moved in with precision, clearing the ground floor, then the second floor, and finally the upper wing in a coordinated sweep. The entire three-story residence was secured in under 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Inside, the lawmaker was found in a private office. There was no resistance, no attempt to flee, only silence.
You know Californians are waking up to the huge dimensions of the fraud scandal when the liberal LA Times admits that the ruling Democrats have done a lousy job monitoring and cleaning up the rampant hospice fraud.
Minutes later, he was taken into custody and escorted out of the residence before sunrise. The charges were announced shortly after. They involved a $2.5 billion smuggling and money laundering operation spanning 5 years, facilitating illegal entry using false identities across multiple policy phases under Donald Trump. But for the agents inside that house, something was not right. The structure of the home did not match the blueprints. Shelving units were misaligned. Stacks of books were arranged with intention, as if concealing something behind them. Not random clutter, but a layer of camouflage. Everything contradicted his statements. This was no longer corruption. This was betrayal at a systemic level. And what was discovered inside that mansion revealed an even deeper layer of danger. A financial fraud network spread across greater Los Angeles, including the operation of fake childcare facilities used to launder money and legitimize illegal cash flow. That was the moment everything changed. If this level of corruption sends a chill down your spine, make sure to like and subscribe, because what began as a silent raid this morning is now unfolding into a federal investigation that could shake the entire system behind it.
My administration is 100% committed to eradicating human trafficking from the earth.
Well, you know, Californians are waking up to the huge dimensions of the fraud scandal when the liberal LA Times admits that the ruling Democrats have done a lousy job monitoring and cleaning up the rampant hospice fraud. 7 minutes after the arrest, another team began sweeping the entire property. What they discovered behind that hidden wall completely changed the nature of the case. Behind the cabinet was a concealed entrance. As agents opened it and moved downward, they prepared for a dark space, an old storage area, dusty and forgotten over time. But when the lights came on, everything was completely different. This was not a basement. It was a coordination center. At the center of the room was a human control network hub. The space functioned as a massive map, a digital grid of movement routes continuously updated. Lines flashed across the screens showing more than 240 active transit corridors, connecting over 60 distribution points. 3 walls were covered with digital displays. Live feeds streamed simultaneously from multiple locations, highways, distribution centers, and what appeared to be security checkpoints across at least 5 states: Nevada, then Arizona, and extending north to Oregon and Washington. This was not a random system. It operated like the flow of money. On the right side of the room, they found 7 high-security digital safes connected to a central locking system. More than $215 million were stored across multiple compartments, tightly packed and labeled. It was staggering, but the money was only the beginning. Right next to the safe area was a workstation with 3 encrypted laptops, 2 independent servers, and a digital console displaying real-time transaction flows. Numbers began appearing on the screens. Large volumes, millions, then tens of millions, then hundreds of millions. When forensic specialists accessed the system, the full scope became clear. This network was tracking financial activity exceeding $2.5 billion. The transactions were structured, layered, and routed through a network of more than 60 shell companies spread across multiple jurisdictions, including offshore financial centers in the Caribbean, Central America, and Eastern Europe. Each transfer was broken apart, redirected, concealed. What appeared to be consulting fees, shipping contracts, or medical supply payments were in reality entirely illegal. But the most disturbing discovery was not the money, not the false identities. It was an encrypted data file found deep within the system linked to human trafficking. A list of locations, seaports, warehouses, transit hubs, coordinates tied to routes near the United States-Mexico border. A total of 29 minor girls may have been fed into this system. This was no longer about identity fraud. This was direct evidence involving human lives. A coordinated operation running simultaneously across financial systems, physical infrastructure, and international channels. By 6 o'clock and 2 minutes in the morning, Federal Command had been notified. The scope of the investigation was officially expanded. What began as a targeted arrest had now become a multi-agency case involving financial crime, cross-border operations, and organized human trafficking networks. And for the agents on scene, one thing had become undeniable. The man they had just arrested was not acting alone, and the house they had just searched was only the beginning. Stay with this video if you support the federal agents risking their lives to dismantle the lifeline behind this network. My administration is 100% committed to eradicating human trafficking from the earth. By 6 o'clock and 46 minutes in the morning, the operation had crossed a line that no one on the team could have anticipated. Inside the underground corridor, a high-level secured file had just been decrypted. It was not financial data, not a transaction log. It was a list of names, 14 individuals, 14 specific roles, port inspectors, logistics coordinators, licensing officials, private contractors, personnel within city offices. Some worked directly at port terminals, others controlled permit systems, some had access to federal monitoring and compliance mechanisms. All of them were connected. Each name was linked to specific transaction channels and transport routes. When the data was mapped in real time, the structure became clear. 17 active transit corridors were supported by 9 controlled storage facilities, all operating on synchronized schedules. Nothing moved randomly. Every shipment was approved, tracked, and cleared through multiple layers of authorization. And at the center of it all was a single point of access. Adam Schiff was leading the network. By 7 o'clock and 7 minutes in the morning, investigators had identified how the system sustained itself. The money did not come from conventional sources. It was built on a targeted exploitation model focused on childcare facilities and social assistance programs. Records were created. Identities were duplicated. Benefits were activated under names that did not exist. On paper, these were childcare expenses, medical support, social welfare. But within the system, it was cash flow. Each transaction was broken into layers routed through shell companies, returned as consulting contracts, transportation fees, or equipment supply agreements. Each individual on the list received between $1.5 and $3 million per transaction cycle, and that was only the documented portion. In parallel, another transport stream had been established. More than 400 kilograms of cocaine were moved through these corridors, directly connected to street-level criminal groups across multiple states. Money from the social system fed the underground network. The underground network expanded control. According to federal investigators, the financial structure of this operation was a masterpiece of criminal engineering. They did not just spend money, They built a system designed to sustain and protect itself. By 7 o'clock and 46 minutes in the morning, all ambiguity had ended. This was not a network that had infiltrated the government system. This was a network operating through it. The very structures designed to enforce the law had been exploited, used to protect, guide, and expand a nationwide criminal organization. Every layer had been manipulated to shield and scale the operation. If you believe federal agents can shut this network down, comment "shut it down." Your support matters. 1 o'clock and 42 minutes in the afternoon, emergency command briefing. The moment the data was confirmed, priorities shifted. This was no longer just an investigation. It became a race against time. Based on the most recent movement logs, one location stood out above all others. A warehouse facility located less than 2 miles from a major port along the southern corridor. The timestamp was recent. The entries indicated active cargo movement. According to the system, a group of victims was still inside. Within minutes, federal command authorized immediate action. A rapid response unit of approximately 180 agents was assembled. No delay, no negotiation. At 2 o'clock and 51 minutes in the afternoon, they moved into position in Nevada. From the outside, the warehouse appeared ordinary. A standard industrial structure surrounded by stacked containers and parked trucks. No visible activity, no obvious threat, but inside the situation was critical. Thermal scans confirmed multiple human signatures in a confined section of the building. 3 o'clock and 3 minutes in the afternoon, entry was executed. Perimeter teams secured surrounding structures in under 90 seconds. Air units confirmed no movement from the main building as the first breaching charge was placed at the rear service entrance. The silence was broken. The door blew open. Armed guards inside opened fire almost immediately. The exchange was brief, intense, and controlled. Flashbangs detonated. Commands echoed through hallways that once displayed student artwork and attendance notices. Within 90 seconds, resistance on the upper levels collapsed. 7 suspects were injured, no one escaped. The real danger was below. Investigators located a false wall behind a maintenance corridor. Thermal imaging revealed dense heat signatures deep within the structure, too many too close together. The wall was breached. What lay behind confirmed the worst fears. A purpose-built underground level divided into multiple soundproof compartments extended beneath the school grounds. Ventilation systems hummed. Independent power lines ran along the ceiling. This space was designed to disappear. Inside the first secured chamber, investigators found 29 children unconscious, restrained with identification numbers written directly on their skin. Toxicology tests later confirmed the presence of fast-acting sedatives. Ages ranged from 6 to 9. No one could respond. Time had become the enemy. Medical teams moved immediately. Oxygen levels in the confined space were measured far below safe thresholds. Further toxicology analysis confirmed the presence of multiple suppressants at concentrations that could become fatal within hours. The youngest victims were barely conscious. None had been told where they were being taken. As search units moved deeper, a secondary discovery revealed the full scale of the operation. Behind another false firewall, agents uncovered more than 800 kilograms of narcotics, including heroin and fentanyl, packaged for rapid distribution. Conservative estimates placed the black market value in the hundreds of millions of dollars per year. Nearby, vacuum-sealed cash was stacked in uniform blocks with initial counts exceeding $80 million before dawn. At 6 o'clock and 2 minutes in the evening, escape attempts began. Dr. Ayan Muhammad Ali was captured while attempting to move through a secondary basement corridor. She made no statement. She offered no resistance. Around her 16 associates were detained and ordered to the ground. The system she had spent years building collapsed in minutes. By late evening, 29 young lives had been pulled back from disappearance and rushed to hospitals for treatment. Hundreds of millions in assets were frozen. A ton of narcotics was seized before reaching the streets. The building fell silent again, but the silence had changed. It was no longer concealment. It was the end. For the agents on scene, there was nothing to celebrate, only a brief pause, long enough to understand how close the outcome had come to disaster, and how easily an entire operation beneath that school could have vanished without a trace. If this rescue matters to you, stay with this story, share this video, and stand behind the agents who stepped in before it was too late. The following day, the entire case began to be brought into the light. Within hours, federal prosecutors initiated formal proceedings. The case against Adam Schiff was no longer limited to violations of child protection laws. It had escalated into one of the most complex federal indictments in recent history. A total of 12 formal charges were filed, including large-scale money laundering exceeding $2.5 billion, distribution of controlled substances involving nearly 400 kilograms of narcotics, human trafficking, and exploitation connected to 29 identified minors, and the use of false identities to facilitate illegal entry into the United States. Each charge was supported by evidence obtained directly from his personal computer systems. Every action carried severe federal penalties. Legal analysts estimated that if convicted on all counts, the total sentence could reach up to 45 years in federal prison. But that was only part of the outcome. In parallel, the Department of Justice immediately initiated proceedings to revoke his United States citizenship, the very status he had obtained years earlier under a false identity. A federal judge approved the emergency review. The outcome was clear: citizenship revoked, status unlawful, final decision, permanent deportation after completion of sentence. Back in Los Angeles, shock spread rapidly. A man who had governed the city for nearly 9 years, a man who had signed official documents, approved budgets, and represented thousands of residents, was now at the center of a criminal network involving drugs, money, and human lives. Local officials began urgent reviews of every document he had signed. Financial records, city approvals, contract authorizations, everything was now under question because the truth was no longer about just one man. The real question was how such a system could exist in plain sight. By evening, the operation had officially been classified as a multi-agency federal case. Dozens more arrests were expected. Multiple states were now involved, and investigators continued to uncover new connections. But as federal teams dug deeper into the seized data, a new and more troubling reality began to emerge. Transaction logs showed activity that did not stop at the moment of arrest. Funds were still moving. Accounts were still being accessed. Portions of the network were still alive. That meant one thing: someone else was still inside the system. Encrypted communications recovered from secondary servers pointed to contingency protocols, backup operators, replacement coordinators, individuals prepared to step in the moment the central figure was removed. This was not a fragile operation built around one man. It was a structure designed to survive disruption. By late evening, emergency warrants were being prepared for additional targets across 3 more states. Surveillance teams were redeployed. Financial tracking units were ordered to follow every outgoing transfer in real time. Because if even a fraction of this network managed to reorganize, the consequences could extend far beyond what had already been uncovered. But one fact remained unchanged. What began at 5 o'clock and 17 minutes in the morning with 34 agents at a quiet mansion had exposed a multi-billion-dollar network, a system built on deception, sustained by silence, and finally brought into the light. By the early hours of the following morning, the investigation had already outgrown the boundaries of Los Angeles. What had been classified just hours earlier as a multi-agency federal case was now being escalated again, this time to a nationwide operation. At 4 o'clock and 32 minutes in the morning, emergency coordination calls connected federal command centers across multiple states. Nevada, Arizona, Washington, and parts of Texas now flagged for immediate review. The data recovered from Adam Schiff's system had triggered something far larger than expected. This was no longer about dismantling a network. It was about containing it because the numbers no longer made sense. Financial analysts working through the night had identified over 63 additional shell entities that had not appeared in the original seizure reports. These were not inactive companies. They were operational active accounts, ongoing transactions. Within just 6 hours, more than $78 million had been traced moving through these entities after Schiff had already been taken into custody. That meant the system was still breathing. By 6 o'clock and 10 minutes in the morning, a second layer of the network began to take shape. Internal documents revealed a hierarchy that extended far beyond the 14 names uncovered in the underground file. Mid-level coordinators, financial processors, compliance officers embedded inside legitimate institutions, individuals who had never appeared in any previous investigation. Estimates now suggested that more than 40 additional operatives were actively maintaining segments of the operation across at least 5 states, and they were not shutting it down. They were adapting. Transaction patterns began to shift. Large transfers disappeared. In their place, thousands of smaller movements emerged. $5,000, $8,000, $12,000. Each one insignificant on its own, but when mapped together, they formed a continuous flow moving through banking systems, logistics contracts, and medical billing networks. It was a deliberate strategy. Fragment, disperse, conceal. By mid-morning, federal cyber units confirmed that portions of the system had initiated what investigators described as a continuity protocol. Backup servers were activated. Encrypted communication channels were re-established. Entire segments of data were being wiped, relocated, or duplicated across offshore networks in real time. This was not panic. This was preparation. At 11 o'clock and 47 minutes in the morning, a critical breakthrough came from a financial forensics team in Arizona. A flagged transaction just under $10,000 had been routed through 4 separate accounts within 23 minutes. When traced backward, it connected to a previously unknown logistics firm operating near a secondary transport corridor. But the most alarming detail was not the money. It was the destination. That same firm had been linked to supply routes previously identified in the trafficking file. Routes that had already been associated with the movement of minors, which meant one thing: the infrastructure was still intact. By early afternoon, federal agents were no longer asking whether the network could recover. They were asking how fast it could rebuild. New intelligence indicated that at least 3 regional coordinators had assumed operational control within hours of the arrest. These individuals were not improvising. They were following a structure, a system designed long before the raid ever took place. This was a network built with redundancy. Remove one layer, another takes its place. By 2 o'clock and 15 minutes in the afternoon, emergency warrants were issued for 22 additional suspects across 4 states. Surveillance teams were deployed simultaneously. No delays, no warnings, because every hour now carried risk. Financial tracking units reported that the total volume of active transactions linked to the network had already surpassed $130 million in the first 24 hours following the arrest, and still rising. But perhaps the most chilling realization came not from the numbers, but from what they implied. This operation had never depended on a single individual. Adam Schiff was not the system, he was only one part of it. By late evening, federal command reached a conclusion that changed the direction of the entire case. This was no longer an investigation aimed at shutting something down. It had become a race to prevent something from evolving. Because if even a fraction of this network succeeded in restructuring itself, the scale of what had already been uncovered could multiply. New routes, new identities, new victims, and this time without warning. If you think this operation should be completely dismantled, stay with this story, like this video, and subscribe, because what comes next may reveal who is truly behind the system and whether it can ever be stopped. By the end of the 3rd day, the full picture had finally begun to come into focus. What investigators once believed was a single operation centered around one man had now been redefined as something far more dangerous. A system layered, distributed, designed to survive. Across 5 states, federal agencies compiled the numbers. More than $2.5 billion in laundered funds, over 400 kilograms of narcotics, confirmed through transport records, 29 identified minor victims recovered from a single location, and now more than 60 additional entities, and dozens of operatives linked to the same structure. But the numbers alone did not capture the reality, because this was not just a criminal network moving money and drugs. It was a system that had embedded itself into legitimate institutions: childcare programs, medical billing channels, logistics contracts. Government approvals, layers that were meant to protect the public, had instead been used to conceal and sustain illegal activity. By the close of the operation briefing, one conclusion was shared across every agency involved. This case was not just about crime. It was about vulnerability, a demonstration of how deeply a coordinated network could penetrate structures that millions of people rely on every day. What began at 5 o'clock and 17 minutes in the morning with 34 agents outside a quiet mansion had uncovered something far greater than anyone expected. Not just corruption, not just trafficking, but a system built to hide within the very systems designed to stop it. And the question that now remains is not just how it happened, but whether it could happen again. If you believe the truth behind operations like this needs to be exposed, stay with this channel, like this video, and subscribe.